So, the American people have been asking for the Epstein files for years now. We want to know who's on the list. We want to know who Epstein's primary clients were. We want to know what was happening on that mysterious island so that we can bring justice to the victims and finally have people that were engaged in these heinous activities held accountable. And it seemed like we were going to get that information a couple of days ago when Attorney General Pam Bondi announced that she would be releasing the files to the public. However, things did not go as planned. Let's get into it. Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. I appreciate you being here. Do me a couple of favors. Hit the thumbs up button, become a subscriber if you're not already, and turn on your notifications so that you never miss out on a conversation like the one we're about to have. So if you've been on social media for the last couple of days, you may have heard that we were finally going to get the Epstein files. We have been asking for this information for years at this point, and we also know that there are a lot of people that want very much for this information to be covered up. Well, a couple of days ago, Pam Bondi finally announced that she was going to release that information, and this is what that announcement was.
You said last week that you have the Epstein files on your desk. When can we see them, and what's taking so long to release them?
I do. Jesse, there are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims. 200. So we have over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released by my office.
What kind? Are we going to see who was on the flights? Are we going to see any evidence from what he recorded? Because he had all of his homes wired with recording devices.
Yeah. What you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information. But it's pretty sick what that man did.
Okay. Well,
along with his co-defendant.
Absolutely. And he had help. That's for
sure.
He
sure did.
So that was the announcement that broke the internet. And I know I had been seeing a lot of people for a couple of weeks wondering why it was taking so long to get this information. My perspective was obviously there's got to be information in there that should not be public, that should not be made available to everybody, especially if it's identifying information of the victim. So I was definitely willing to give them that time and that space. And as confirmed by her, that is exactly what they had been working on. So my social media feed lit up with people tweeting about how we were finally going to get the Epstein files. Breaking news, Pam Bondi is going to release this information tomorrow. So it was a little bit surprising that before there was a press conference or any kind of official announcement of the files coming out, that this was the first photo that went across social media indicating that these files were now out there, but for some reason were first delivered to a group of conservative media influencers. And not only that, people were criticizing the photo for what seemed to be making light of a very serious situation. There were a lot of people, including myself, who thought it was a little bit questionable, to say the least, to pose with a binder that has probably some of the most disgusting information in it, where we have victims of predators being listed in there, at least the crimes that were committed against them. Yet we have people standing there and smiling like it's Christmas morning. So a lot of us had some questions about that. But before we could get answers on that situation and what was going on in that photo, the next thing to go viral across Twitter was this letter that Pam Bondi had sent to the new FBI director, Kash Patel. It says, "Dear Director Patel, before you came into office, I requested the full and complete files related to Jeffrey Epstein. In response to this request, I received approximately 200 pages of documents, which consisted primarily of flight logs, Epstein's list of contacts, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. I repeatedly questioned whether this was the full set of documents responsive to my request and was repeatedly assured by the FBI that we had received the full set of documents. Late yesterday, I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein." Despite my repeated requests, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When you and I spoke yesterday, you were just as surprised as I to learn this new information. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, and audio and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholdings or limitations to my or your access. The Department of Justice will ensure that any public disclosure of these files will be done in a manner to protect the privacy of victims and in accordance with the law, as I have done in my entire career as a prosecutor. I am also directing you to conduct an immediate investigation into why my order to the FBI was not followed. You will deliver to me a comprehensive report of your findings and proposed personnel action within 14 days. I appreciate your immediate attention to this important matter. I know that we are both committed to transparency for the American people, and I look forward to continuing to work with you to serve our president and our country. So Attorney General Bondi had requested these documents and was repeatedly reassured by the FBI that they had handed over everything, only to find out that that was not true. It has come to light, even though I don't know that this is shocking anymore, that the FBI field office in New York has been getting rid of documents and files and pretty much anything that they are in possession of, and pretty much provided to Pam Bondi and what was in these binders as little information as possible, and likely things that we already knew. So what most people are saying is that this binder is a giant nothing burger. She's also directing Kash Patel to get into the FBI, figure out what's going on, find out who did this, and let's start holding people accountable. And not only that, get us these documents. After everything was circulating on social media, a lot of us were still wondering what happened at the White House and why were all of these conservative media influencers acting the way that they were, what happened prior to them coming outside. We just needed some more clarity because it was all very, very strange. So this was a conversation that Liz Wheeler had with Glenn Beck, and she explains the events as they unfolded prior to that photo.
We get outside, we see that there's a gaggle of press, essentially in the bushes to the side of the White House. And the looks on their faces, so sour, so dour, so astonished to see us, because it wasn't a publicly announced meeting per se. And they were kind of like, what the heck are you guys doing here? And so we were, again, giddy from having been in the Oval Office, having just come out of a meeting with RFK where he was telling us some remarkable things he's working on. And they were curious about what we were holding. Now, this is a very important part of the story. We had not been told up to that point that there was any sort of embargo on this information. It was our impression at that moment that within about 2 minutes, we would be able to break the story of the SDNY stonewalling Pam Bondi. And so when the media was so sour and bitter that we had gotten this binder, yes, we were kind of laughing at them. We were holding up the binders in defiance, saying, you know what? You've been relegated to the bushes because you lie and you smear and you gaslight the American people, and we are the media now. And that was the background of that picture. Now, within about 2 minutes of that picture being taken, we were told, please don't report on the binder itself or the story about the SDNY until 3:30 in the afternoon, because they didn't want the press conference between Donald Trump and the UK Prime Minister to be solely focused on the SDNY Epstein files story. So all of a sudden, we are in this situation where the press has gotten photos of us with these binders that appear to be real Epstein files, and yet we knew that they were not. And we begged for the embargo to be lifted. The process of that embargo being lifted was frankly botched up. That should have been, it was an error on the part of the White House not to allow us to go ahead and do that. We, of course, were being respectful of that embargo because we were just given an exclusive story. But what happened then is pictures of us holding the binders were the only things that we were allowed to post at that moment. But we thought we'd be able, within about 5 minutes of those posts, just getting people's attention, to tell what the real story is.
Right.
And yet the embargo wasn't lifted. And so it created this situation. And I cannot even tell you how frantic I felt in this situation, Glenn, because it appears to be a bait and switch. And my goodness, that's the last thing that was ever intended. I was frantic behind the scenes telling the White House, you have to let me tell this story. You have to let me release this. Do you know what this looks like publicly? But unfortunately, it was at least over an hour before we were able to do that. And so in the interim, everyone in the country, understandably so, assumed that those binders were full of Epstein files, and they felt like we were withholding information from them. They felt like we were engaging in clickbait. They felt devastated and used when they found out there was nothing in it. And again, honestly, I'll be blunt. I totally understand why people are pissed off, because I am too, about that.
So she's correct. The impression of that photo, first, it seemed like they were being given information that us peasants were not allowed to access. It seemed like they were being given information that we would have to jump through hoops for to get ourselves, or that these media personalities would be picking and choosing the things that they wanted to report on, not in a dishonest way, but just, I want to see the files for myself. I want to read these pages myself. I don't want somebody else to tell me what's in them. I want to see them. So it did feel like that we were kind of being left out of it because we don't have, channels with millions of people. Also, it did feel like a bait and switch. Like, Pam Bondi was telling us that we were going to get the Epstein files. And the next thing that we see is this photo of conservative media influencers holding these binders. We were being given the impression that is exactly what is in these. So my question was, why did they make the binder at all if they knew that the information in it was not what they had said that it was going to be, that it was basically, like I said, a nothing burger. So once they were allowed to be more public about what happened, which I appreciate, and I hope we get more of an understanding about why there was this disconnect between getting these binders, allowing people to think that they were the Epstein files, and then waiting until these social media influencers were allowed to tweet to tell us that they weren't. To me, that is a huge mess. But this is what Liz had to say after, and I know I'm referring to Liz Wheeler a lot, but she is basically saying the same thing as a lot of these people are, as I have been reading a lot of their tweets and seeing their comments on the situation. This is the story. President Trump and AG Pam Bondi committed to releasing the Epstein files. The FBI was told to deliver the files to Bondi. They did, about 200 pages. Bondi smelled a rat because there was nothing juicy in the 200 pages, just flight logs and a Rolodex of phone numbers, no smoking gun. Still, Bondi promised to release the documents, so she prepared a binder of them. Then, last night, a whistleblower contacted Bondi and revealed that the SDNY was hiding potentially thousands of Epstein files, defying Bondi's order to give them all to her. We're talking recordings, evidence, etc., the juicy stuff, names. These swamp creatures at SDNY deceived Bondi, Cash, and you. Be outraged that the binder is boring. You should be, because the evil deep state lied to your face. The binder is powerful because it's tangible physical evidence of the disgusting stunt the SDNY tried to pull. Bondi is now demanding all the Epstein evidence from SDNY, plus an investigation into the persons who committed the act of defiance. The legacy media has betrayed you again and again and again. They lie to you, they smear you, they gaslight you. They deserve no special access to real-time exposure of corruption because they played a role in covering it up in the first place. You are the media, Elon said. Yes, we are. So celebrate the regular people are being given access to the most powerful people in our country to report on despicable corruption as it's been uncovered in real time. And be very, very, very angry that deep state agents in the swamp at the SDNY are at this very moment defying President Trump and AG Bondi, and you who voted him into office, lying and hiding the truth about Jeffrey Epstein because they don't want their own corruption and weaponization of government exposed. That's the story. So that is how everything unfolded over the last 24 hours. It is my understanding that initially Pam Bondi did think that she had been given the Epstein files, and then discovering that the information contained in it was not what she had asked for, she still made the binders to distribute to these conservative media influencers, but did not give them the impression that this was all there was. Meanwhile, she is talking to Kash Patel, being like, you need to find out who did this, who is ignoring and defying the orders of the president, who is going against the law, the party of nobody's above the law. Apparently, there is a whole bunch of people that belong to the FBI in New York that feel that they are above the law. And then apparently the media jumped in on this opportunity to take their photos, to release them to the public and give us the wrong impression about what happened before we could actually hear the story and get information in the right way. Ultimately, I don't think it can be overstated how deep the corruption in our government goes, as we are finding out with all of this stuff that has been exposed over the last couple of weeks. And it feels like a giant sledgehammer with the information that we are finding out. So this is definitely par for the course. My question is, how many of these files still exist? Because we have to remember that Trump was elected in November, and they still had 2 months to get rid of any information that they did not want him to find or have access to, and definitely information that would land them in jail. So they have had a lot of time to carry out these kinds of activities. So I don't know what it is that they are going to be able to find at this point. But at the end of the day, we still want to know who did it. We want to know who is defying these orders, and we want them to be held accountable. And one question I did have on my mind, and you guys can answer this for me, these people that are basically what appears to be shredding these files, burning them, incinerating them, whatever it is that they're doing. Do you think that they are willing to take the fall for the people on those lists? Because ultimately, they will be caught. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino will figure out who has been destroying these documents and getting rid of this information. And there are going to be charges, and there are going to be massive consequences. So you have to wonder, will they take a deal and start talking, or will they go to prison for life for this? So you guys let me know what you think. My final thought is the information that they are getting rid of has got to contain some of the worst crimes committed against women and children that any of us have probably ever heard of, and they will go to the ends of the earth to bury it. And I don't think we can understand the true level of evil of the people that have been in charge of our government, or at least a part of our government, over the last several decades. I hope that true accountability and justice comes. But that is all I have for you in this one. I will continue to follow this situation and drop more information as I find out more to keep you guys informed, in case you're not as addicted to social media as I am. But I would love it if you would hit the thumbs up button, become a subscriber if you're not already. Other than that, keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.